Hello everyone and welcome back, and I think this is the moment you've all been waiting for. The fabled NORSCA rework. Is NORSCA fun now? There's a lot of things coming into NORSCA and we're going to separate it into different parts. So there'll be timestamps for Wulfrik, for Throgg, and also for NORSCA in general. So keep in mind that the design ethos of NORSCA is very much still the same. But what it has been done is being brought into the standard of Warhammer 3. There's a lot of changes coming into effect, so let's just jump right in. So we're starting off with Wulfrik as he has the least, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So let's start off with the faction effects. Has access to Sea Fang to instantly travel vast distances between ports. Income from raiding plus 50%, all armies. Upkeep minus 15% for all Marauder units. And charge bonus plus 15 for Marauder chariots and Marauder cavalry units. When it comes to the Lord effects, we have the following. Enables sea-based attacks on port settlements for Lord's army. Campaign movement range plus 15%. Attribute causes fear in Lord's army. Immune to high seas, reef, and storm attrition for all armies, which is amazing. I know that sounds weird, but it actually fits really well with this faction. And finally, ability Sea Fang. So the main thing here is, finally he's got faction and Lord effects. I mean, Throgg does too, which is amazing, because they had like nothing. So let's jump into the campaign. There is so much there that we need to talk about because NORSCA has been fixed. Your campaign begins right off the coast of Lustria, where you'll have a decent starting army and a starting hero. You will also have a settlement in NORSCA, but you can get rid of that in just a second. The main thing here is the world's your oyster. You don't have to stay here. You can easily move away. So it's all depending on what you want to get from this playstyle. Wulfrik has a lot of possible options, and even waiting a few turns gives you even further options. So what you want to do here is you want to see where you can go, right? And you, as long as you are near a port, you can open up the Sea Fang travel, which you can bring further armies along with you. There's a maximum of 40 entities there. The idea here is traveling to any ports that you've got vision on the world map. And there are going to be events where you're going to get vision anywhere, so that's perfectly fine. At the very beginning, it's just there where you are and a little bit of NORSCA, but even then that means that you can go back to the Trollfjord, or if you want to, you can go somewhere else in NORSCA and just take over from there. Maybe snipe out a Lord and get the Confederation going. For the purpose of this video, we're actually just going to be focused around the Lustrian area, just for Wulfrik, and then we're going to be switching around in different perspectives when we go into the rework, and then finally for Throgg. Skill lines have gotten some minor updates for Wulfrik, which is good. End of the day, it's just further buffs like replenishing campaign movement range after winning a battle, or making your javelin throwers a little bit stronger, which, funny enough, is going to be very, very useful when you're doing the monster hunts. The best thing is also reducing the cooldown towards your Sea Fang travel, because you will travel around a lot, and a very hefty reduction for upkeep for your army if you're trying to get a lot of mammoths with extra bonuses towards mammoths. The Mammoth Doom stack is going to work very, very well here. So it's not a huge overhaul, but I think that's actually going to be for the best, because this is going to allow you just to familiarize yourself with what you already know. And ultimately that's a good thing because, yeah, I mean, there was nothing really too wrong with his skills, they just needed some updates. Now, we're going to be moving on to this next section, because we're going to go in and we're going to go take a settlement for ourselves and get our first dilemma, which is basically the whole, do you want to keep the settlement in NORSCA, or do you want a hefty amount of gold and some supplies? Don't worry, we'll talk about supplies a little bit later on. So yeah, if you want to micromanage multiple areas, you're fine. Or, and I've actually tested this, if you want, you can go to NORSCA, take a settlement from another faction, get the 10,000, and then just build up through NORSCA there too. I'm not sure Creative Assembly intended it to be that way, but it works out very, very well, especially if you're just trying to get that achievement out of the way. And if you're wondering on, well, how's Sea Fang going to be used if you're not really moving away too much, every now and then, yeah, you'll have something like this pop up. So there will be a dilemma just basically giving you some spoils and also granting you vision for a location, which is very useful if you want to launch an invasion somewhere else. Maybe you've landed in Lustria, built up a little bit, this pops up, okay, well, I'm going to go to Bretonnia, or maybe I'm going to go to Charon's Car. I don't know how many there are of this, but it does actually make it quite fun to start planning out invasion launches with this. I mean, he's Wulfrik the Wanderer, right? You're expecting to wander. And I think this actually works out quite well. So it's a very small mechanic, but it does feature very heavily in your gameplay, and even I was using Sea Fang fairly often. I was quite impressed with how much I found myself using it. Pro tip, if you're playing with Wulfrik and you've just done a monster hunt that's pretty far across the world, again, see Fang just to get back and start recruiting the big troops if you lost any. It's really useful. So we're jumping into the general rework now, and the first thing we need to talk about is spoils, because spoils are going to form so much of your campaign. So you get these via buildings, you get them from events, you get them from pillaging, and you get them from the monstrous arcanum. You spend them on buildings, events, you spend them on marauding, settlements captured, and through technology. You see, these spoils are going to be the way that you're going to be able to settle outside of any Norscan regions. You will notice that there are certain icons on the map when you start going through them, and what doesn't have like the typical Norscan helmet, that means that it's not Norscan land. You are not able to settle there unless you spend spoils. Now this does mean that your campaign, if you're fighting outside of Norsca, can be relatively slow, because spoils at the beginning are a little bit hard to come by, but it does also mean that you've got that theming. The Norscans in Norsca do very, very well. As they start expanding, they need extra supplies to keep themselves going. So getting spoils is pretty simple. You can go in the main way, attack a settlement, and raise it. You can also put up a altar, and that will get you some, but raising a settlement is going to be the way that you get the most spoils, because you'll get a general flat amount, and that is, depending on the settlement, sometimes really good or sometimes quite low. And you'll also be gifted a secondary army. Now this army has more spoils, it's pillaging, right? You send them back to one of your settlements that can actually have that, so some other ports and so on, and that will get you the rest. Or if you've got way more than you already need, well, you can use that secondary army to kind of just move around. You have to control these secondary armies, which means that you can divert the course if you want to. Maybe you've just had an enemy declare war on you and you want to get the hell out of there before your precious spoils are wasted. But yeah, keep that in mind when you're playing Wulfrik. If you're going to be spreading into Lustria, what you might want to do instead of going down here is go up to Skeggi, which is Norscan territory, and take it there and then deal with Mazdamundi. Either way, you're going to be dealing with Mazdamundi. Now, once you destroy those settlements, you can have another army just pick it up and turn it into a normal settlement, so that's perfectly fine, but that's something that you won't want to do early on. Don't worry, as your campaign progresses, you can have natural generation for spoils, so you don't have to worry about that too much. It's a road bump at the beginning, but you can pretty much ignore it as time progresses. Okay, so now we have to talk about the tech tree, and there's a lot here because there's 3 separate sections: war customs, tribal strength, and finally conquest, right? So how it's going to work here is with war customs, you're going to be building up your forces, right? So in war customs, the top part is going to focus around your marauders. The middle part is going to focus around some basic monsters, and then the bottom part is going to focus around some even larger monsters, with the end of it allowing you to get some upkeep reduction. I think it's like a flat -5. You don't have to do the whole 3 sections to get to the end. If you just progress through one branch, you can go all the way to rally the tribes. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but I really hope so, because it works out quite well. When I was playing with Wulfrik, I was mostly using humans. When I was playing with Throgg, I was mostly using monsters. So I'd like to have that work as intended, so I don't have to do the full tree just to get some basic upkeep reductions. Now, the second section, Tribal Strength, is going to be a little bit of everything, right? It's going to focus very, very heavily on your infrastructure, which, by the way, the 2 techs over here, which focus around using spoils, because you use them here too, are faction exclusive, meaning that those 2 techs are exclusive to what you're going to see on screen in a second, Wulfrik, and then when I'm playing on Throgg, those are going to be different and exclusive to Throgg. I really like that. I think that that's something that we need to see going on more forward, but as it's come through Tribal Strength, it's mostly just infrastructure, and the infrastructure stuff is very, very useful because, yes, you are going to be building a bit of an economy with the Norscans. I know that sounds absolutely bizarre, but it's not completely out of the question. You'll also get some bonuses to movement and stuff. I would highly recommend, if you're going to start playing with NORSCA as from the release day on the 4th, you're going to want to really look through this, because I was honestly quite impressed. I was going through it going like, oh my god, this is so different. And it gets even more so when you start looking towards the final changes, but we'll get to that in just one second. Because I think it's a really important thing to judge a rework by the tech tree. If the tech tree is good, then you know things are going to be very good as time progresses. The final section is Conquest. Now, Conquest is very similar to how we had it in the past, where you want to go to certain locations to pick up certain bonuses, right? But you don't need to take that settlement anymore. It's the case of either you take the settlement, or you fight a certain faction 10 times, where the Chaos stuff is there too, so you're going to be able to fight the other Chaos stuff. Remember that NORSCA sees itself very differently to Chaos in certain positions. They worship the Chaos gods, but they don't actively know that those are the Chaos gods. It's like their own separate shamanistic things, right? It's a very weird thing when it comes to Norscan lore. But yeah, you'll get bonuses if you fight 10 Warriors of Chaos factions. You can get 5% upkeep, which is really useful faction-wide, or if you take the settlement instead, which is the Writhing Fortress. This is going to be so much better, because this means that maybe, in some cases, factions completely die out, right? But you still want that bonus. Just take the settlement. It doesn't even matter if that faction still has that settlement. Mazdamundi is one of them, where you can just take Hexotor and then you'll get the bonuses there. It takes like a turn to get it complete, or just fight Lizardmen 10 times, which in my own campaign, yeah, I had to fight the Lizardmen 10 times, because oh my god, Lizardmen versus early Norscans is kind of tough, even with new buffs, because you've got so many things coming at you with fear, terror, large monsters just slamming into you, and you don't have the best early units. It depends on your chosen faction, of course, but this is a very good way forward. Norsca, just with the tech tree, got a lot better, so everything else is pure bonus now. And I really mean it, because they are fully unique now. So your commandments are going to be as expected. You're going to be able to spread some Chaos Corruption. You're going to be able to just get some general growth, which is likely the best one, especially early on. But things get a little bit more interesting, because obviously now there is another tab there for marauding. So you're going to be able to use spoils, or even using some control to get some temporary bonuses. This is something that we've seen before with Slaanesh, with the Dark Elves, and so on. I get that, but there's something a little bit different, because one of them, well, Immolation depends on what altar you have in your local province. You might actually get a real strong bonus there. So that means that you can have your altars up and running. We're going to talk about the altars in just a second, but it looks really, really interesting that way. Again, early on, not sure how much you're going to be using this, considering that spoils can be quite rare, but that depends on yourself. Before we jump onto the Chaos Altars, though, we do need to talk about building, because, yeah, as you can imagine, that's got redone too. So it's looking samey, but also very, very different. You're going to have different types, obviously, minor and major settlements. How it works is you've got your normal trees. So everything where the background is white, that's the same normal building that you're already used to, obviously with some units moved around, so you can get, like, for example, dogs in turn 1 here, where it's trolls for Throgg. Yes, you can get a tier 1 building with trolls for Throgg, don't you worry about that. But you might notice some darker background buildings. So these are very special, because they can either be tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, and what that happens is they can offer different bonuses. Or, in the case of, say, for example, the Marauders, rather than getting to a tier 4 building, you can pay with spoils and get the Marauder champions at tier 3, which is actually quite insane. Same thing with Ettins, getting them in tier 3. They will vary, and sometimes if they just go above and beyond, like, for example, your Palisade building or even some of your infrastructure buildings, they'll get you some bigger bonuses or different bonuses compared to what you are normally used to. I like this. I think it's really, really cool for Norsca, because as you start progressing through your campaign, early on, and depending on how you go through it, you might end up with a fair amount of spoils, which means that you're going to be able to get yourselves some Marauder champions very early on. Okay, let's talk about dedication and altars. So you still have to build up Chaos Altars to get your devotion system going, but it's been kind of changed a bit. Altars are going to have much more uses than they did in the original version. One is they provide a small amount of spoils, but that's not all, obviously. So, when you build up an altar, you can dedicate them to one of the 4 Chaos Gods, and you'll have to decide which is best for you. It's the same type of system as before, where if you get enough altars up and running for a specific god, you'll be able to get certain bonuses. I'm going to dedicate it to Slaanesh, And you'll see that you can build them up as a one-slot settlement. Building them up to its second tier will allow for generation of spoils, which is great because you're going to be building up a certain amount of these anyway. Then you've got some other buildings that you can build up, some basic infrastructure buildings, a defense building, or you could even build recruitment buildings with a special one being there where if it's dedicated to a specific god, you can actually get units from that specific god. Some Chaos Spawn and a Chaos Warrior unit. So you can get some basic Chaos Warriors with NORSCA now. With Slaanesh, you can get your hands on the Hell Scourges. There is a limit, so you won't be able to doom stack them, but it does allow you to get some basic units here and there. This is all tied up to the usual system, which is the allegiances. You can get some very powerful bonuses, and you can dedicate to yourself to Khorne, Slaanesh, Nurgle, or Tzeentch. So not much was added here, barring just retooling the bonuses themselves. The bonuses are quite strong. It's a bit of a shame that we didn't get like more to that specifically, but they've done a lot of work around it, and really being able to get some God-touched units is kind of cool. You'll still get the Lord or Hero depending on the allegiance, so you get a little bit of flavor for a god, but nothing too overdone, which I think is important. NORSCA needs to have its own identity while still falling within the Chaos sector. The Chaos Altars will also count as full-on settlements, meaning that if you've got all of a whole province as altars or mixed and matched with normal settlements, you'll still be able to get your bonuses for your commandments, so yeah, you will be able to get general bonuses from that. Confederation is the same. If you beat another enemy warlord for the Norscan race, you'll be able to confederate them, or you can actually get some spoils. Generally, confederation is probably the best way to go, as, yeah, areas are kind of limited. Not only are you fighting other Norscan warlords, but you're fighting Chaos Lords who want those territories. Empire building is still entirely possible. It's just going to be a bit slower at first than what you're normally used to, because you need spoils for areas that you don't have as a Norscan homeland. So don't you worry, I've done a few campaigns already with the Norscan stuff, and I must say, like, once you start getting enough spoils, and when you start doing the Monstrous Arcanum stuff, which we'll talk about in just a second, the rate of expansion becomes a lot better. Or if you just want to build up in Norsca first and then get yourself out there, that also works too. It's entirely possible, even with Wulfrik, as he's able to go back there in the same turn and start expanding. I can't talk about Sayul just yet, but don't you worry, he's going to have a dedicated video. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the big thing. Monster hunts. Monster hunts have radically changed. Not only do they work now, finally after, what, 2 years, 3 years? But this is going to be your main system. Monster hunts are divided into 3 types of hunts. Glory hunts, taming hunts, and trophy hunts. And the idea here is you're going to be able to go after certain monsters, pick up items, get into very large battles, and even get yourself some very special regiments of renown. It's in the form of the Monstrous Arcanum, because the hunt system is now called the Monstrous Arcanum, which is a nice little throwback to a wonderful book back in the day. You could use it as a weapon too. It was great. The book itself, not in the game. Some of them we already know because it's monsters that have been reused and just changed up a little bit even for the mission and so on, whereas there's a bunch of new ones too. When it comes to glory hunts, there's not really that many, but it gets larger and larger as you go into, say, for example, taming or trophy. The idea here is you're going to have a lot of different types of missions with some really good rewards, and some of them are even repeatable too. Don't worry, when there's repeatable ones, you'll be able to see a little icon when going through the book. So you're going to send off characters on these hunts. They're not going to disappear or anything. You're just going to get a mission series and you're going to go around with them. They're even going to have special events that pop up that allow you to get bonuses, sometimes even negatives too, so you've got to keep that in mind. And you're going to have to travel. From what I've been able to see, most of the hunt stuff is going to be near around your immediate vicinity. So it's not going to be like you're going to have to travel for like 20 turns or so. But in some cases, you're going to have to travel quite far. And you will find yourselves in neutral, enemy, and even ally territory, sometimes your own, depending on how much territory you've picked up. So in this case, I have to travel from Morafi's land. She doesn't like me too much, but it doesn't matter. I'm only going to be in there for a few turns, and I've got more important things to deal with, and so does she. But you can easily decide with these hunts to take in multiple armies and just pillage your way through. Get yourself some spoils whilst you're at it. Some of the missions don't even require much extra missions. It's just go to a specific area and do the battle. But some of them do have a fairly lengthy chain, so it depends on what character you send up there and what you're trying to achieve from this. What I would say is some of these missions are harder. So you're going to keep in mind on that. They've been reused in some cases, but a lot of them have been restylized, certain new effects or stuff happening on the battlefield. So things get a little bit interesting there.
Friggus Trex is here for the taking, my lord. The weather is fierce in these climes, and is worsened further by the monster's presence. You must brave the storm, but be mindful of your approach. When you decide to charge the beast, the extreme winter conditions will slow the movement of your warriors.
For example, in this battle where the Frostworm has a number of storms it can call in and basically wipe out your units very quickly, it's really interesting, and there's loads of different fights like this. So there's one with Cygors, there's one with Cockatrices, there's battles with a bunch of monsters that have been added in for the period of Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3, including even Toad Dragons, which you'll be able to pick up as a special regiment of renown. What I would suggest is some of them can be done quite early, but make sure that you tailor your army. If you know that you're going to be dealing with Frost Dragons, for example, well, bring a decent amount of anti-large, because I made a bunch of mistakes there. Though I did have a decent amount of javelins, though, and Wulfrik does boost up the javelins quite well. The glory hunt seems small, but the taming hunts, there's actually quite a lot more. There's like, what, 3 pages, more or less? And there's different stages there. So the first stage will focus on getting items and certain rewards. The second stage will get you the Regiment of Renown, plus some extra rewards. It's important to note here that once you've done stage 1, you can then go on to stage 1 of the other ones too, as that's how you progress. And I think that's kind of cool. So you can skip anything that you're not wanting, or if you want to go straight to Supreme Hunter, there are also cooldowns. It's only a few turns, but it doesn't mean that you can just beeline straight for the end, which I think is good, or else you're going to get way too overpowered. And NORSCA is really, really strong right now. There's a lot of these special fights. Like I said, some of them are kind of old, but some of them are new and they're newly voiced with the new narrator, and they can be quite unique. There's one, for example, where you deal with a Jabberslife, but there's 3 Jabberslifes. 2 of them are visions, and you just have to find the correct one and kill it off. It's quite themed. Kind of reminds me of that Dynasty Warriors mission, you know, when you're fighting the Yellow Turbans? There's a bunch of vision troopers and stuff. It's kind of like that. The missions themselves, they will, again, vary in difficulty depending on the army. I was just going with like a basic army just to get some footage, obviously, but it's cool. It definitely gives you that feeling that you are hunting the monsters. It's a bit of a throwback to the original trailer, and it's definitely a vast improvement to the original one. Let's be clear, the original one wasn't bad for Warhammer 1, but once it got to Warhammer 2 and then later Warhammer 3, it was very, very quickly outdated in terms of styling. I did have a few fights that took me away from my general vicinity. Like there was one in Estalia. Thankfully, Wulfrik is able to go up there, sort that out, and then teleport right back because there's loads of ports in Estalia. And then you've got the trophy hunts, another big batch of monster hunts. Like there's so many now. It really feels like you're really going after loads of monsters. Little throwbacks too, which I'm really happy about. Like a lot of these creatures direct from certain books. It's just nice. And I think if this is a big thing for me, right? If it's the case that we're going to get a lot more monsters in the future and so on, right? I'm hoping that Creative Assembly will go back and add in some more monster hunts, because I think this stuff is really, really good and thematic. I don't know if they're willing to do that, considering that I imagine reworking NORSCA must have been a pain and a saga in its own right, but hey, you never know, you never know. I just liked mechanics like this. I think that we need a generalized mechanic maybe to bring in the Storm of Chaos into the Immortal Empires, but that's something for the future. So, we're basically done with the NORSCA rework, but there's still a few things more to talk about. So let's talk about skill lines. This is the last major thing. As you can expect, you've got Lords and Heroes. Some of them are old, some of them are coming in new with the DLC. It makes sense to cover them both. The Marauder Chieftain can basically dedicate to one of the Chaos Gods, which works out quite well. You can even dedicate them to Tzeentch and get a bound spell. It depends on your playstyle, but Marauder Chieftains are going to be something that I imagine people are going to be using less, because in all fairness, a Spellcaster Lord is going to be quite brutal, you know, and you've also got a Mammoth with that, so it's going to be quite defendable. But in cases that you want some basic melee, or you do not own Tides of Torment, the Marauder Chieftain does feel good. It's just not the most impressive type. I would say that it's still capable of doing a decent amount of damage. But given the fact that your great sorcerer shamans can be buffed up to do melee alongside the war mammoth with a war shrine, there's a lot of uses for these characters more than anything else. Plus, you know, you've got Lore of Fire, you've got Lore of Metal, you've got Lore of Death, all very good laws of magic. I'm kind of surprised that we didn't get any more, and no dedicated laws. I mean, it makes sense, but it would have been useful to have a few dedicated laws. Maybe for the devotion mechanic, it's just one of those things where it's not a deal breaker, and really, like, Lore of Death is one of the most useful ones, the same as Metal. So, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of looking at it. There's a bunch of heroes, so we're going to be here a while. Usually when it comes to just the sorcerer shamans, you just want to build your way up to get the cooldowns going for the spells, because there's so many ways to get excess winds of magic. The more cooldowns you have, the more deadlier you are. You've got some basic administration stuff for the cost reduction, though you're not really going to be in your areas too much. And again, you can make them semi-decent when it comes to melee, especially once they're mounted up on a Marauder chariot, as the chariot itself is pretty damn good. I'm just glad that they didn't go, oh yeah, give it a mammoth. I know some people aren't going to like that, but it can get a bit ridiculous. It's the same thing that happens with a lot of heroes. The skin wolves, yeah, same old. Like, generally very, very good. And their support, you can have them kind of being like really good assassins, so it depends on how you want to use it. But you can also boost up the charge bonuses for your basic army, which I think is probably going to be the best if you want something kind of aggressive. Well, hyper-aggressive. Not a lot has changed for skills, and I say that's perfectly fine, because skill points, they were kind of okay. What I do find weird is that there's a heavy push with the Famir to have more and more Famir-focused armies, but we don't have like a Famir generic lord or a Famir legendary lord. You never know for the future. Since Creative Assembly are experimenting, we know that they're going to be working on like smaller style DLCs, so that could happen. And to be fair, I'd love like a Famir style legendary lord, kind of like a minor faction, something that I've been kind of advocating for a while. Well, it's more the Noble, which is the new hero only available in the DLC, but you know what I mean, right? Like, we got 2 heroes and a fair amount of units, not a lot. I think that something like that could happen in the future. I don't want to jump into that too much, but it does seem a little bit out of place, especially since we don't have like a Marauder champion or whatever. Well, hero, they need a name for that because Marauder champions are a basic unit. Though I don't imagine that we'll get any like big NORSCA content in the future. Very much depends, I guess. Okay, we're not done. Clearly, it's a long video, but we're going to be talking about Throgg, who has had a host of changes. We'll start off with the faction effects. Can establish a troll empire, calling upon trolls and beasts of the monstrous horde to support invasion. Specific locations on the map provide limited access to bile trolls, chaos trolls, river trolls, and stone trolls. Yep, you've got all the trolls now. Unfortunately, no river troll hag, no hero, but you still get a lot of big monsters. Income from post-battle loot plus 10%. Upkeep minus 20% for all troll units. This is faction-wide, by the way, which is phenomenal. And perhaps one of the scariest things, physical resistance plus 15% for all troll units. So yeah, they're going to be as durable as demons now. Finally, we do have a bunch of lord effects. So all units in Throgg's army are immune to all attrition. Chaos Undivided Corruption plus 2 for local province. Recruitment cost minus 20% for all troll units in Lord's army. We've got the ability Copious Vomit, we're very used to that. Passive ability Regeneration, we're very used to that too. And finally Leadership plus 10 for all troll units in Lord's army, making them a lot more durable, making sure that they stay in combat a little bit longer because, yeah, trolls can break quite easily. So, we're going to be talking about a lot here because we're going to jump into the campaign. It's a little bit more than what happened to Wulfrik, and I think it's going to be very, very themed. If you like big monsters, if you like just something kind of different, well, there's a lot here. So you're going to start off in the same location that you're very much used to, getting into combat, and then just confederating, getting a full province of 4 settlements within your first turn. It's the same gameplay loop that you're used to. Things are going to start dramatically changing though, so don't think it's going to be all the same. Not only do you have all the changes there, but there's a bunch of other stuff. Throgg didn't need a change. Obviously remember that, yeah, you do have to deal with Malachite quite early on, and the Chaos factions up north can be quite problematic, so always keep that in mind when you're starting off a Throgg campaign. It is still a bit of a difficult start, but it makes sense considering, yeah, you know, it's NORSCA. So, we have to jump into the skill tree, and a few changes have come in. You're going to be able to get a bit more reduction for your troll units, massively boost them up, and also your Vermeer troops too. So it's pretty much the same styling as what we've had before, just a slightly bit upgraded, which is fine. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Throgg is Throgg, right? So you've got a lot of stuff coming in for all your monster units. Also, there is a massive weapon strength bonus with faction-wide potential, which is wild. Yeah, I mean, he's still the powerhouse. If you're thinking about Throgg and you're like, oh, well, is he still going to be very strong? Is he going to be terrifying? Can you get even more bonuses to physical resistance? Yes. Yes, you can. It's just wild. He can become really, really terrifying. And just like Wulfrik, he has his own unique technology, which is extra population surplus for captured settlements, which, yeah, very, very strong. Very, very strong. Overall, I think everything just goes super, super quick when you push really fast. If you pay aggressively, you're going to be in a very good spot. You have a brand new resource called Troll Kind, and this is going to be your main factor for your campaign. You get Troll Kind from buildings, events, and they pop up quite often. The Monstrous Arcanum too, you'll be getting that for the monster hunts. And finally, Troll units. It'll be a steady increase, and you can use this on events, buildings, and Brood Hollows. It's going to be one of those resources that is just going to naturally trickle in, so you're not going to have to worry too much about it. Naturally, it also links up to Call the Monstrous Horde, so this allows you to get extra forces. This gets you unlocking for temporary units granted as a Horde faction. Well, not really a Horde faction, but you know what I mean. You can also pick up the bonuses, so extra upkeep reductions, extra leadership, perfect vigor for all trolls. It depends on how far you go up, which is then linked up to your Troll King's Dominion, which there's a few bugs popping up every now and then. Keep in mind we're an experimental build. I think we're going to be getting the last build right before this embargo goes up, which is not really ideal, as you can imagine. But yeah, so special buildings, which can be acquired from different locations. You'll get Dominion, you'll get spoils, you'll have to spend a bit of Troll Kind. It's all linked up to be kind of homogenized there. It's a pretty good system. It sounds a little complicated, but once you actually start jumping in, it's kind of like a passive use of kind of like the Chaos Dwarfs, or more so Devotees for Sunesh. Yeah, probably Devotees for Sunesh. So you'll gain it, you'll use it. It's actually really funny how Throgg now has this really structured and semi-complex campaign, when really he's the Troll King. I get it, yeah, he's supposed to be very smart and so on, but he's got a lot more to it than, say, for example, Wulfrik. The benefit here also, as you might have noticed, is, yeah, some troll units can be also acquired earlier into your campaign, with Frost Trolls and Norscan Trolls being from Tier 1. And that's great. That's something that a lot of people have been asking for. Hell, I think it's something that a lot of people have been modding into. Call the Monstrous Horde is rather simple. It's literally just have enough resources, select an army, use it on them, and get some units. So it's like a secondary horde function. It's kind of like a war army for the trolls. You can get them better as you get more dominions, so you can get more units. But early on, you know, like turn 3, being able to get a Chimera, a Dreadmore, and a River Troll, yeah, pretty sweet. And lastly, you will get events that pop up every now and then like this. So you can actually get some trolls for free, which is going to get you quite a lot. It depends on what you want to use, but you might want to get some Bile Trolls or get some Chaos Trolls, which means that you get free. Remember that these also give you that new resource. Remember that these are all trolls, so they fight pretty much the same way. So it depends on which one that you actually like. Really, Stone Trolls are very durable, River Trolls are quite strong, Bile Trolls very, very strong. They're still trolls, right? So, I mean, you're not getting anything functionally different. I know that sounds like disappointing, but I mean, it's a troll, dude. It's just nice to have all the different types, but ultimately they all kind of work the same way. Alright, so let's talk about the NORSCA rework, give you my thoughts, and I'm going to show you what I've been doing with Wulfrik, which I feel is quite optimal. Literally just leaving as soon as possible, going to take the territories in NORSCA through a different point, because you do start off with a minor settlement, so you might as well take a major one. And funny enough, there's a tremendous benefit here, because I'm not sure if Creative Assembly actually expected this, or maybe they just didn't. I don't know, it just feels weird. But yeah, you can take the settlement, you can take one of the settlements there, you can get rid of your minor settlement, get the extra 10,000 cash, And there you go, like you are in a really fast way of getting up your buildings and getting extra armies up and running. It's kind of silly. I mean, it's fun, and please don't nerf, but yeah, it just felt a bit weird. Better yet said, it isn't a complete redo. Instead, it's getting the foundation of what's already there and just actually making it good. And I do think it's really important because it allows for NORSCA to retain its identity rather than just turning into a basic human faction or another version of Chaos. I mean, it's still a Chaos faction, but the idea here is allowing it to be its own thing. Identity within Chaos is always really, really hard to do, so I can kind of see what Creative Assembly have been trying to do here. I've played a fair amount of campaigns with all 3 Legendary Lords. I just can't really talk about my experience with Sail the Faithless just yet. Wulfrik is pretty fun. Throgg is incredibly fun because you've got all those troll things. I do feel like Wulfrik kind of suffers here, as I still very much believe that Seafang should have been a pseudo-horde building, very similar to that of the Vampire Coast. But the teleport is very useful and does allow for invasions to be planned out quite well. Throgg, no complaints. I think he's in a pretty good spot. It's a bit of a shame that he didn't get the River Troll Hag hero, but yeah, I mean, you can't take everything, and maybe Games Workshop said no. Faction-wise, NORSCA feels like it's in a good spot. Spoils are a bit of a weird one, though. Like, I get why it's done, and it's going to slow down players. I'm not sure how the player base is going to react to that. But once you get to a point that you've got enough Chaos Altars up and running, it's going to be kind of natural. I just feel like it's going to be a bit awkward there, especially since you've got to babysit an army that really should be either automated or shouldn't really exist. I get why it's been done. There's a bit of risk and reward there. You already get a fair chunk of spoils, and then the second chunk is really up to you if you're going to get it or not. It's just a bit strange there with the babysitting. Tech tree is fine. Roster is fine. Well, the tech tree is more than fine, I'd say. And the new Monster Hunt system finally works, so that's a really big benefit. Really, it feels like what NORSCA should have been. And I think that's something that a lot of reworks have been doing lately. Not so long ago, well, technically it has been a while, the Kislev rework came in, and Kislev feels really, really good. I do feel like NORSCA has been brought in to a level that is expected now. I've had a fair amount of time with NORSCA, and I can say that it feels like what you expect from Norskans in lore. So this feels like a Marauder faction now. You can Empire build, you don't have to. You can focus around just the Norscan territories and anything just attached to that. But yeah, it's entirely possible. You still have the incentive to go to different locations. You still have the incentive to either fight other races or take their capital cities to get those bonuses. Would I recommend NORSCA for a playthrough? Yeah, I think so. If you want to play as like Wulfrik or Throgg, you're going to have fun. Probably more fun with Throgg. Maybe some more with Wulfrik. It depends on your class fantasy, I guess. But overall, if you've got those DLCs, you can really enjoy it now. Well, on the 4th when this releases. If you don't, you can pick it up for a really good discount, so that's pretty much it. It's pretty weird seeing NORSCA fully done. I mean, now we have to find a new punching bag, right? I guess the vampire counts until they get their eventual DLC. But yeah, I'd say that, yeah, very fun. Very, very fun. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. This has been a very, very long video, as you can imagine, but it was kind of expected from NORSCA. And I'll see you all again very, very soon, guys. Have a good day. I'll be live on twitch.tv/Grudges playing around. I think we're actually doing a NORSCA campaign today, and I'm going to let the players pick who I play. So, yeah, pop by, say hi. There's a lot of videos coming out today. I think there's going to be about 4. And yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. See you guys.